lights never really go out in New York. They flicker. They pulse. They wait for nights like this. For the first time in a generation, basketball at Madison Square Garden feels less like a game and more like an event woven into the rhythm of the city itself. The taxis still scream down 7th Avenue. The train doors still slam underground. Somewhere in Midtown, somebody is still arguing about whether the Knicks are truly back. And somewhere else, somebody already believes. Because Game 1 didn't just give New York a win, it gave the city permission to dream. Jalen Brunson carved through Philadelphia for 35 points with the kind of calm that feels uniquely made for this building. Not flashy, not theoretical, just ruthless, in the way great New York guards have always been. Every crossover sounded louder here. Every jumper felt heavier. And by the fourth quarter, the Garden wasn't watching basketball anymore. It was conducting it. But this rivalry has never cared about yesterday. Philadelphia arrives tonight bruised, embarrassed, and dangerous. Tyrese Maxey still has the speed to change a series in 6 minutes. And Paul George understands something most veterans eventually learn. The deeper the postseason goes, the smaller the margin becomes between legacy and regret. The Knicks lead the series 1-0, but in New York, that only raises the stakes. Because this city doesn't just want good basketball. It wants a moment, a spring soundtrack, an empire state of mind. And tonight, under the lights of the world's most famous arena, the Knicks have another chance to turn belief into something louder. Greetings from our Temecula studios. We welcome you to the Hardwood Report. I'm Ryder Bullock. So glad you are with us as the New York Knicks lead this Eastern Conference semifinal series 1-0 after a stunning and empathetic 137-98 victory over the Philadelphia 76ers in Game 1. And if you're Philadelphia tonight, you're not just trying to respond to a loss, you're trying to respond to a message. That message came from a Knicks team that looked fast, connected, physical, and completely comfortable under the bright lights of the Garden. Jalen Brunson was magnificent with 35 points, controlling tempo from the opening tip, while Karl Anthony Towns continued his strong postseason play inside. The New York Knicks shot over 50%, defended aggressively, and turned what many expected to be a competitive opener into a one-sided showcase. And now the challenge becomes even steeper for Philadelphia because the biggest headline entering tonight is the absence of Joel Embiid. The former MVP is out with ankle and hip injuries after another difficult and physically taxing season. Without him, the 76ers lose not only their leading big man, but also the emotional center of their team. His presence changes everything, defensively at the rim, offensively in the half court, and psychologically for both teams. And tonight, Philadelphia must figure out how to survive without him on a floor where momentum can disappear in a matter of minutes. So the pressure will no doubt shift squarely onto the shoulders of Tyrese Maxey and Paul George. Maxey has been the engine of this offense all season, particularly in transition and attacking the paint, while George will need to provide veteran stability and perimeter scoring against a Knicks defense that has been relentless over the last several weeks. Philadelphia knows they cannot afford to head home down 0-2, especially after the way Game 1 unfolded. For New York, meanwhile, there's an opportunity here that this franchise has not seen often in recent years, the chance to truly seize control of a postseason series and further energize one of basketball's most passionate fan bases. The Knicks have won 7 of their last 10 games. They are healthy. They are defending at a high level, and perhaps most importantly, they are playing with confidence. And inside the world's most famous arena, confidence tends to multiply quickly. Madison Square Garden, not the only basketball cathedral hosting a game tonight. The Frost Bank Center in San Antonio hosting the second-seeded San Antonio Spurs, who are finding themselves in an unusual position, trailing in a playoff series. The Minnesota Timberwolves stole Game 1, 104-102, and they did it with the kind of poise and late-game execution that has quietly turned this team into one of the most dangerous groups left in the postseason. Julius Randle led the way with 21 points, but the Minnesota Timberwolves continuing to reflect the personality of its young superstar. I thought Anthony Edwards was out for the foreseeable future. I'm sorry. Anthony Edwards popped up out of nowhere. He was fearless. He was explosive. He was emotional. And more importantly, he was increasingly comfortable in the biggest moments. And for Minnesota, Game 1 was important for another reason, because it proved they could win without needing a perfect offensive night. The Timberwolves shot well enough, defended well enough, and most importantly, survived the final minutes against a San Antonio team that has spent much of this season overwhelming opponents with pace, ball movement, and length. That's what makes tonight fascinating, because the Spurs were not dominated in Game 1. In many ways, they played their style. But in the postseason, style alone is not enough. Execution becomes everything. And for San Antonio, the attention naturally turns to Victor Wembanyama and De'Aaron Fox. Wembanyama remains one of the league's most unique defensive forces, capable of changing possessions without even touching the basketball. And Fox, he gives this team speed and late-game shot creation. But the surprising Game 1 may have been rookie Dylan Harper, who led the Spurs with 18 points and looked entirely unafraid of the playoff stage. And that matters, because championship-caliber teams are rarely carried by one or two names alone. They need contributors everywhere. The Spurs finished the regular season with 62 wins, and one of it, the NBA's best records at home. They moved the ball beautifully, ranking among the league's leaders in assists, and defensively, they protect the rim as well as anyone. So in basketball, you're as good as it gets. But tonight they face something they haven't dealt with much this season, and that's urgency. Lose again at home, and suddenly a dominant regular season begins to feel fragile. And for Minnesota, there's opportunity here. The Timberwolves have become one of the West's best perimeter shooting teams. They're battle-tested, and they carry themselves with the confidence of a team that believes it belongs on this stage. Anthony Edwards has embraced the spotlight before. Tonight, against a young Spurs team equally eager to announce itself, he steps into it again. So we shall see both of those games tonight on ESPN's doubleheader. We will have the halftime reports on this channel, plus a post-game show to follow. And before all of that, though, there is more to come on the Hardwood Report. So more on these games in a moment. But first, it's worth pausing for a moment to remember a man who changed television itself. Before there were highlight alerts on phones, before scores crawled endlessly across the bottom of screens, before sports fans expected to know everything instantly, there was a bold and often doubtful idea from a man named Ted Turner. Turner, who died today at the age of 87, didn't merely build a television network, he altered the pace of modern life. When he launched CNN in 1980, the notion of news operating 24 hours a day sounded absolutely absurd. The established powers of television believed people would never watch news around the clock. Turner believed they would want access to the world whenever the world happened. He was right, and sports in many ways followed the blueprint he created. The endless rhythm of today's NBA conversation, the debates, the highlights, the analysis before games, after games, and deep into the night exists in part because Ted Turner proved audiences would stay connected if the coverage felt immediate, alive, and constant. He also understood something essential about sports long before many media executives did. Games were more than programming. They were community. They were identity. Turner transformed the Atlanta Braves into America's team through national cable television exposure, and he brought that very same ambition to the Atlanta Hawks. Long before the NBA became a year-round national obsession, Turner recognized basketball as compelling television. Fast, emotional, personality-driven, perfect for the cable era that he was helping invent. To Turner, owning teams wasn't simply business, it was content, culture, and connection all rolled into one. He saw sports not as filler between commercials, but as the heartbeat of television itself. He was brash, unconventional, sometimes controversial, but no doubt a visionary. A man who looked at television not as it was, but as what it could be. And on nights like this, when millions gather around screens together for a playoff game carrying drama, stakes, and shared emotion, you can still see his fingerprints on the medium. Ted Turner once said CNN was the greatest achievement of his life, but perhaps his greater achievement was convincing television to think bigger. And because of that, all of us who sit in front of these cameras tonight owe him a measure of gratitude. Ted Turner passed away today at the age of 87. All right, we got ourselves a real interesting playoff picture right now. You look around the league, and for once, there's no clear dynasty everybody's terrified of, except maybe Oklahoma City. And that's the story. The Thunder aren't just winning games anymore. They're starting to feel inevitable. They sweep Phoenix, they smack the Lakers in game 1 last night, and now you're hearing the same language people used with those old Warrior teams: depth, defense, chemistry, versatility, and that's dangerous. But here's the thing with Oklahoma City: usually young teams got to learn heartbreak before they win. That's the NBA. You get punched in the mouth first. But this group, they already got the ring experience. They got the MVP. They got bodies everywhere. Big lineups, small lineups, defensive guards flying around like linebackers. And Mark Dinglnott deserves a ton of credit because he coaches without fear. He'll throw weird lineups at you, and suddenly you're down 14 before you even know what happened. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander looked last night completely in command of the spotlight. And I'll tell you who's fascinating, though, is the team that I think they're going to play in the next round in the Western Conference Finals, and that's San Antonio. Because normally we'd say, all right, nice season, come back in 2 years. But Victor Wembanyama changes the math. He changes geometry. You're talking about a guy who can ruin an entire offensive game plan just standing there. The concussion in round 1 didn't matter. Comes back blocking everything again. And if Stephon Castle keeps making threes, suddenly San Antonio's not just cute anymore. They're a real problem. And oh, by the way, they've beaten Oklahoma City a couple times in the regular season. Now in the East, I still believe the most complete team is the New York Knicks. Now, I got scared for New York in round 1. I kind of paused and hesitated because I was looking at Boston. I was looking at Jason Tatum. I was looking at Tatum playing like he had missed a beat, like the Achilles accident didn't happen. Okay, and I got a little scared, and I said, well, maybe the Knicks fall short because, hey, Boston was the better team in the regular season. Okay, standings-wise, the Knicks should be the 2 seed, but they're not. They're the 3 seed, and that was why I was scratching my head. And I know people wanted to hear about that, and so now for me to say that they are the most complete team, I know people may not want to hear that because everybody still thinks something's going to go wrong at Madison Square Garden. But Jalen Brunson has changed the culture there. He's calm, he's tough, and he's the leader, right? And he allows the team to follow him. Plus, if OG Anunoby suddenly turns into a 25-point scorer, forget it. Then you got Karl Anthony Towns finally looking comfortable offensively. He's found his rhythm. Josh Hart is scrappy and everywhere and doing his thing. And I just think the Knicks look dangerous. Okay, but there is a warning sign for New York, and it's the Philadelphia 76ers because they are the definition of vitality. They could lose by 30 or beat anybody in the league. That's what makes them scary. Now, we know Joel Embiid tonight, but You still got Tyrese Maxey, and you've still got VJ Edgecombe, the rookie, and I think those guys can still overwhelm you offensively. And then you throw in Nick Nurse, who is who is the one coach left who's been through every playoff war imaginable. But we always know, and tonight's no different, the issue is always health. Every year with Philly, it's the same conversation. Can they survive 2 months physically? History says no, but talent says maybe. And we also want to let you know that Nick Nurse will be on the sideline tonight. He was in Iowa yesterday attending his brother's funeral. We were told everything went well with that. And he's back in New York, going to be on the sideline tonight. We send our condolences to the Nurse family. Now, I want to talk about Detroit for a minute because nobody saw this coming a year ago. Nobody saw it coming a year ago. Nobody. Cade Cunningham looks like a superstar, legitimate superstar. And defensively, they hit you. They defend like it's 1994. You got Thompson, who's becoming one of those defenders people are terrified to play against. But the concern is obvious. Where's the secondary scoring every night? Can they consistently make enough shots? Because eventually playoff basketball becomes half-court execution. And sometimes that physical style ain't enough. Then there's Minnesota, who honestly might be the toughest team mentally left in the playoffs. They survived Denver. They still game one in San Antonio. And, we thought Anthony Edwards was going to be out for longer. They're limping around, still making winning plays. No Dante DiVincenzo, no A.O. Dawson, and so that's toughness, right? Rudy Gobert probably just played the best playoff series of his career against Jokic. But the injuries are becoming overwhelming. No DiVincenzo. You're banged up everywhere else. Eventually, depth becomes an issue. And finally, the Los Angeles Lakers. Listen, every year we do this. Every year we say, don't count out LeBron. Right? Every year we say, don't count out LeBron James. And every year he makes us look stupid for doubting him. Right? Look at the Rockets series. Okay? But this Oklahoma City matchup feels different. The Thunder are younger, deeper, faster, healthier, and frankly more organized. Luka Doncic gonna probably be out for a few more weeks, and that's gonna change everything. The Lakers can fight, they can compete, maybe even steal a game here or there, but beating this Thunder's team 4 times, that feels like asking for a miracle right now. So when you step back and you look at the whole board, here's what stands out. The NBA's officially entered the next era. This ain't Steph's league anymore. This ain't LeBron's league anymore. We're watching the transfer of hope in real time. And it could very well be Jalen Brunson's league as we get you ready for Game 2 between the Knicks and the 76ers. And I'll tell you right now, this game is a whole lot bigger for Philadelphia than it is for New York because the Knicks already did what they needed to do. They protected home court. They sent a message. And now the Sixers have to answer a very simple question. Are they actually in this series? Or was Game 1 the beginning of the end? Because let's be honest about Tuesday night. That wasn't competitive basketball. That was domination. Monday night. That was domination. The Knicks beat them 137-98. And frankly, the score almost flatters Philadelphia because the game felt over halfway through the second quarter. Brunson was controlling tempo, Towns was stretching the floor, the defense was flying around, and the guarding crowd was treating every possession like it was 1994 again. And here's what stood out to me watching the tape back. This was not one of those games where a team just gets hot from 3 and everything goes crazy for a night. No, that was not the case. The Knicks generated quality offensive possession after possession after possession, and that's what matters. Anybody can get lucky shooting, but when you repeatedly create good shots because your structure works, series that travels in the playoffs. And right now, the Knicks structure is working beautifully. I'll start with Brunson because he's the center of everything. This guy right now is playing like the best guard left in the Eastern Conference playoffs. And I know that's a big statement when you've still got stars around the league. But watch the game carefully. Nobody's dictating tempo better than Brunson right now. Nobody is. He's got that old school playoff guard game. He reminds me a lot of his dad. And real patience. Real composure. He gets defenders on his hip, slows the game down, gets into the lane, pivots, pump fakes, draws contact, finds shooters. Nothing's rushed. Nothing feels chaotic. It reminds you a little bit of those guards from the 90s, and where every possession felt intentional. And the Sixers never got uncomfortable. I mean, they could never settle in. And that's the biggest issue if I'm Nick Nurse tonight. You can't let Brunson play comfortably for 40 minutes. You just can't. Because once he gets into that rhythm, the entire Knicks offense settles in behind him. Now, tactically, here's where Game 1 got away from Philadelphia. The Knicks controlled the pick and rolls all night. The Sixers had no answer. Drop coverage didn't work because Brunson walked into open mid-range shots. Switching didn't work because Towns punished mismatches or Brunson attacked slower defenders. Blitzing opened the weak side and gave Bridges and Anunoby clean looks, and the Knicks kept running it. Time and time again, same action, different wrinkles, same result. That's playoff basketball. People think playoff basketball is about emotion. It's not. It's about repetition. The best teams find your weakness and keep attacking it until you either solve it or collapse. And right now, Philadelphia has not solved anything to beat the New York Knicks. Let's talk about my X Factor, Karl Anthony Towns, because quietly, he might be the most important player in this series strategically. Not necessarily the best player, but mentally and on paper, because Brunson's the best player right now. No doubt about it. We know that. The stats show that. But strategically, Towns changes the geometry of the game because Joel Embiid wants to live around the basket defensively. And now we know that he's not going to be there tonight. And that's going to, again, throw another stone into Philadelphia's plan. But that's where he's elite. That's where he changes shots, and that's where he controls possessions. But Towns drags him out to the perimeter, and suddenly Embiid has to move laterally, recover contested shooters, and defend in space. And that's exhausting over a 7-game series, especially for a guy dealing with ankle issues already. And look, I know some people killed Embiid after Game 1. I'm not going to go crazy after Game 1, but let's call it honesty. Okay? He looked passive. Okay? I mean, he did. 14 points, 3 for 11 shooting. And beyond the stats, he never imposed himself emotionally on the game. That matters in playoff basketball. The great big men make you feel them even when they're not scoring. Shaq did it. Duncan did it. Hakeem did it. Ewing did it here in Madison Square Garden. They controlled physicality. They controlled psychologically. And the Knicks were way too comfortable on Monday night. And if Embiid isn't making New York uncomfortable, Philadelphia is not winning this series, period. Now, one thing I'll say is, for my Philly fans here, is I expect them to play much better emotionally. Sometimes after a Game 7, especially an emotional one like they had against Boston, teams come out flat in the next round. It happens all the time. History tells us that. The emotional release catches up to you, and Philadelphia looked exhausted. Not just physically, but mentally. So I do expect better energy tonight. I expect Maxey to attack early. I expect VJ Edgecombe to put a notation on this game. And, Maxey only took 9 shots in Game 1. 9. That cannot happen. Maxey's too explosive to disappear like that. He has to push, pace, attack before the defense gets set, gets downhill, and gets in transition, because slow basketball favors New York. The Knicks want this game in the half court. They want Brunson controlling the pace. They want physical possessions. They want the game to just fall in line to them. They know that the Garden crowd's going to get louder every defensive stop. So why not get more defensive stops if you're the Knicks? Okay? Philly needs chaos. They need speed. They need quick offense. They need to attack before the crowd fully gets into the game. And then there's Paul George. And honestly, George might quietly be the swing factor in the series now. He was probably Philadelphia's best player in Game 1. But efficient isn't enough anymore. They need aggressiveness. I need Paul George to be the version that attacks mismatches, creates offense, and takes pressure off Maxey. Because here's another reality of this matchup. The Knicks are deeper. And I can't believe I'm saying that, but they are. 15 guys scored in that Atlanta game. And in long playoff series, depth matters more and more. Bridges gives them versatility. Anunoby might be the perfect playoff role player because he defends spaces. He defends those spaces. And then Josh Hart's. I can't get over Josh Hart. Winning without needing shots. He's just there. He will die for those 50-50 balls, and those create possessions, and then you get Mitchell Robinson in the mix there, and they're changing possessions with rebounding alone. That stuff wins in May. And I'll tell you something else. Madison Square Garden matters again. That building right now has become a real playoff building again. There are only certain arenas where the crowd generally changes the emotional weight of a game. Boston does it. Chicago used to do it during the Jordan years. Crypto did it during Kobe's prime. The Garden is back in that category right now. The city believes in this team. You can feel it, and belief matters in sports more than people admit. Now, let me be very clear here. If Philadelphia loses tonight, the series is not mathematically over. We've seen teams come back from 0-2 before. It happens every year somehow. But emotionally, if the Knicks win convincingly again tonight, the conversation changes. Then it stops being can Philly adjust and starts becoming can anybody in the East beat New York? That's the shift. And I think the Sixers understand that. So what do I expect tonight? I expect a much tighter basketball game. I expect Embiid to play with more force. I expect Maxey to attack aggressively. I expect Edgecombe to play with more force. I expect Maxey to attack aggressively. No Embiid tonight. And I expect Nick Nurse to throw different coverages at Brunson early in possessions. But here's the problem for Philadelphia. Until they actually stop Brunson consistently in crunch time, I'm not betting against the Knicks at home. Not with this crowd. Not with this confidence. Not with the rhythm we found offensively. So I think Philly fights. I think it's competitive into the fourth quarter. But eventually I trust Brunson more than anybody on the floor. And in playoff basketball, eventually the game simplifies into one question. Who has the guy who can settle the game late? Right now, New York has that guy in Jalen Brunson, last year's clutch player of the year. So tonight, for that reason alone, I'm taking the Knicks again. I like the Knicks, 125-108. And my play tonight, lay the points with New York. Until Philadelphia proves otherwise, the Knicks deserve the benefit of the doubt. That will do it for us. Games tonight on ESPN. We will see you back here for the Hardwood Report at the half. Enjoy your basketball.